All right.
Hey, y'all.
It's summertime.
Hopefully people tap in. We forgot to post on our social media. But if there's no post, that just means we're going on at the same time.
Yeah. Although it almost didn't happen today. Oh, there's 6 people.
Hey, y'all. Just know we're raggedy. We're doing our best. Oh my gosh. Hey, Jack. Jack, is it Stevens or Steffens?
I don't know why this is not connected to anything, but him popping up just then made me think about the interview. Snoop Dogg just did an interview where he talked about when he first met Pam Grier, and he passed out in the bathroom after meeting her.
Oh, wow, that's so sweet.
It was like he said he went in the bathroom and his security guard was like, "Hey man, why are you on the floor?"
Yes, we did unblock Melcher.
Yes,
so Melcher, hopefully you're here. Shout out to you. My bad. We figured it out. Oh, Stevens. All right, perfect.
Okay.
Riles pasta sauce. What's good? What's going on? That's interesting. Pam Grier, huh? Okay.
Yeah, but that's that whole generation. Like that's their crush.
I don't know who the equivalent.
Well, because that's what he said. He said for us, it was like for our generation, it's more like Halle Berry. He was like, but that's who Pam Grier was for him anyway.
Oh yeah, I guess it was Halle Berry
and Nia Long.
Nia Long, definitely. Yeah.
I don't know who it is now. I also saw that
is it Zendaya?
Ish?
I don't know.
No, she's not my cup of tea, but Method Man and Redman performed at Summer Jam, and he was like, "Never again," because that ain't my crowd. He said the age gap is too wide.
It's like performing at your kid's party, like. Hey y'all, the hippity hops is here.
Not the hippity hops.
That's funny.
Okay.
Y'all, it is summer. It is June officially.
It is.
Was it? I think
it's still technically not just
summer.
It's
June 21st, right? That's the summer solstice. Oh, we should have a party.
We should.
/ going away party. No. I'll sit here for one more month.
Calm down. For those of you who I, gave many heart attacks to because I posted that said Carl was missing.
Lou, you hope it's not Zendaya? Was that what you're talking about?
Oh, I don't know what that was.
Thank you, Radas. Yes, a woman's place is on the front lines, period. I love this shirt. I got a hoodie too, a black hoodie.
Why do I all of a sudden have nasal things going?
It might be because the air is blowing.
I think so. That's why I be having problems in Ubers, because they be having the AC blasting.
Sometimes they don't be having the AC on at all, and I'm like, bro, roll the window down at least.
I just always want the windows rolled down. I want to go back to the COVID days where people rolled their windows down by default.
Yeah, except when it's winter, then you're like, or when my hair is like, but see, this is blowable. Yeah, you don't have to worry about that.
Not
but
a
I'm
concern
like,
for
when
me.
my hair is blowable, I'm like, roll it up. Roll it up. Everything on this side up. Yeah.
I'm bald-headed and sexy.
Yeah, like my baby.
I need a haircut. Oh, that's what I was saying. I was apologizing to my people who had many heart attacks when I said my baby's son Carl was missing. I just needed y'all to understand the seriousness of the fact that I was missing my baby.
We will never lose our baby. Now, granted, she can maybe get taken. Doubt it. Her dad is 6'8". I am crazy, so I doubt it. But but nah. But it was cute. He said, "Yeah, she's not my cup of tea. Seems like this generation chosen light-skinned actresses to be the object of white affection and fetishes." Oh well, but dark-skinned ones too. Well, because I don't know, is Zoe Saldana light-skinned or not? Because it's like I
don't even like talk about her. So
it's like the object of white affection. Because I feel like that's just black. I feel like, so for example, when I watch commercials, it's like almost exclusively interracial couples or racially ambiguous, and I'm just like, this is actually not representative of the population, but okay. Zoe don't claim us. Very true, Lou.
That's why I said I don't even like talking about Zoe. She get on my nerves.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't think she's anybody's dark skin, except for maybe self-hating Dominicans. But.
Or like brown. I don't know, but you know,
dark skin, no.
No, I know. I said brown because I said she light skin, but You know, I'm weird about color. But okay. We can get started.
Who's thirsting after Zoe?
No, I don't think anybody's thirsting after Zoe. Or I don't know. And also, like, yeah, she's not actually of this generation. To be fair, I don't know any new actresses for real except Zendaya and then Chloe and but they're kind of like hybrid, right? They're singers who got into acting.
What's her name? What's her name's daughter? Jason Momoa and
ain't she our age? Zoe Kravitz.
Zoe Kravitz, yeah.
Lupita and Viola Davis are the only dark actresses Hollywood act.
No, the other one too, that was in Queen and Slim. What's her name?
Oh yeah, she was married to the white dude from Dawson's Creek.
Yeah. Who Lupita then started dating afterwards.
Oh, that's weird.
What is her name? I can't remember her name. Yeah, but
Cynthia Erivo? No. But she's
not,
another one though.
Yeah, she is. But I don't like Cynthia Erivo either.
Is she the one that played Harriet Tubman?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Keep making me laugh.
What chocolate niggers?
First of all, what Ghanaian? Some chocolate.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
All right, y'all. So we can get started.
Jody, that is her name. Jody. I was gonna say Dean. But it is Jody.
That's the only Jody
Turner
like.
Smith. Yeah,
no, I'm just kidding. Okay, so Regina Hall is still a baddie.
First of all, because Regina is just like I like her, like period.
I feel like most of the Reginas are cool because there's Regina Hall, Regina King. Regina King is very talented, by the way. I feel like there's one more Regina. Not Regina George. That's Mean Girls. You can't say with us. But no, Regina, I love Regina Hall.
She's hilarious.
She is.
Also, she managed to somehow get past the Scary Movie era and still be taken seriously as an actress.
Yes. She was.
Because I thought she was so obnoxious in that era.
Honk If You Love Jesus, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I love that movie. It had terrible reviews. I think that was maybe some religious folks who didn't quite like it, but it was a great movie.
She acted her ass off in that movie.
It was the hat girl. Then the mime, the praise miming was.
But then that made me think about Sterling, and then it made me think about Sterling trolling Jennifer Lopez. Speaking more Spanish there.
Jennifer Lopez. She's like, girl, what is you doing?
Okay, y'all. We just.
Okay. Anyways, all right. So, life. Okay. LA report back. So y'all, I was in the Bay in LA for 2 weeks. I was in LA for maybe like 5 days. The majority of it was in the Bay, but I did a teach-in at UCLA that was a part of the sort of afterlife of their encampment, but then also they're on strike. The graduate students are on strike. You can't do any political strikes. It's illegal. So it's a work strike, but everybody there has keffiyehs on it. It's clearly it's in response to police attacks on faculty, students, and staff at the encampment. As well as some economic demands that they're making. So that was cool. I met an influencer, which was very interesting. I'm not on the TikToks, so I didn't know her, but Ismatu Gwendolyn is her name, and she was very cool, and very close with Sekou Odinga apparently, and I guess she does like popular education. So that was interesting. We might do some things together. We'll see, but that was cute. Oh, we met this amazing woman. What's her name? Dej. She's like the co-host with Gerald Horne. I think it's KPFK, the LA radio station, but she's also a mathematician. She's amazing. She does like culturally relevant math, but like she was just so incredibly brilliant. I didn't say nothing about math in my talk, but she was like, I was just seeing all the math that you were talking about. I said, girl,
you ain't gotta say nothing for a mathematician. It's already there.
I was good at proofs and trig, but the rest of that stuff, I don't know nothing about no math. But she was like, we're trying to dispel that mythology. I said, good. And so she does culturally relevant math. But anyway, so there was a lot of interesting people there, suffice it to say. The talk was cool. I was in conversation with Robin Kelly. So yeah, I talked about Black Scare, Red Scare, of course. And so that was great. Then I also did a talk at the Radical Hood Library, which is the headquarters of the No Name Book Club. That was on the 31st. That was awesome. Michael Anderson did an amazing job because what he did was the first part was kind of like a talk between, like a dialogue between he and I. And then he had these like study questions, and he actually broke people up into groups, had them talk about the questions, and then share back. I really appreciated that, what is it, framing or that approach, because it was like more interactive. It is, I just hadn't seen it before.
That pedagogy.
That pedagogy, yes, is very Michael. He has slides and everything. So that was dope. And I got me a, no name book club tote, which was great. And what she said was that my publisher, University of Chicago, donated 100 books to her prison chapter. So shout out to that. That is amazing. And shout out to them, because sometimes they be stingy, and I'm so glad that they donated those books. So another thing, so Wayne State launched a faculty and staff for justice in Palestine chapter. They're having a event tomorrow, actually. The first, they're having like a press conference and rally. So if you're in the Wayne State area, it is going to be on the corner of 2nd and Warren at 6 p.m. There's an open letter that we put together. So there's two different groups, but so we put together an open letter for President Espy, who's a bum. Basically, all of this came in formation as response to her calling the police on the encampment that happened. The encampment was launched right after the Palestine conference. And it seems like as soon as Rashida Tlaib left, because Rashida Tlaib was there for several days supporting the students, it seems like as soon as she left, the cops came, and then they closed down the encampment, brutalized students, arrested some. There was like 11 people arrested, including 6 students. One student got her hijab pulled off. So it was all bad. And so, but out of that came a larger group, and then out of that larger group came a push to form the faculty and staff for justice in Palestine. So it's been interesting. The ideological spectrum is vast, so it's been very interesting to see it sort of be formed, to give my input, and to I'm excited about when I actually return to Detroit, what we're able to do as a chapter. And seeing, if there are folks who radicalize, and seeing how we sort of bridge or engage the differences in ideological approaches, because it is vast. And it's definitely been it's encouraged me to ask more questions. Y'all know I'm in my settle your quarrels era. So I just asking questions, and then, gently pushing back. Like when there was this one thing where this man was like, we need a philosophical foundation. And something we probably all can agree on is no violence at all, that all violence is bad and all violence should be condemned. And I said, absolutely not, because the violence in the service of liberation can never be equated to that in the service of the oppressor. So let's not have any broad philosophical statements. Let's have some principles of unity around which we can all organize. Let's support the students. And that was another thing that we're trying to work out, is like, are we simply echoing the demands of the students, or are we as faculty, as stakeholders, as people who also are contributing, right, to the genocide that is happening in Gaza, and to, by virtue of being in the U.S. Academy, which is the intellectual arm of the state, do we have our own demands? So that's another struggle that's happening. So
how did they respond to your intervention about violence?
I think actually, like, there was 12 hearts.
What?
There was 12 hearts on the comment, and so I think it was, it was well received. Like he kind of, walked it back. He didn't press the issue, but I think it was made clear that, we ain't no both sides to this, right? And so probably what will happen is, like, the more kind of liberal-ish folks will fall off, and we'll see what shakes out from it. And if not, then we'll just have to organize across difference, right?
Or it may be that people that you all like with our chapter, it may be that people are organized into doing different types of things.
Exactly.
And so there are certain subgroups that are dealing more with directly with student stuff. So it might be another.
Yeah. So we have like a comms committee. So this is the other thing. I have told them they need to be very careful about talking to the press, especially in like these nascent stages as we're forming, because one or two or three people don't represent. Not only do they not represent the chapter, like we don't even know what we represent yet. It's still in formation, and people be too quick to want to do interviews and these press conferences. And so again, it's a big tent, right? And if the objective is to win as many people as possible to not only support the chapter, but also to at least raise consciousness about what's happening in Gaza. People have been under a fucking rock. Then we got to manage these across these ideological differences. And so And then I got a busy week, y'all. I got a lot going on. So I'm going to be on the Make It Plain podcast, which is Kahinde Andrews. He's a British Black Studies scholar. I'm going to be on his podcast
Is he
tomorrow.
coming to the U.S.? Was he trying to come to the U.S.?
No comment.
Okay.
I'm going to be there's something called an Outbraving Summit that's happening at Harvard University. It's more of a closed gathering. But I'm going to be in a panel called Black Political Economy, Capital, Racism, and Technology. So that's going to be interesting. So that summit is on Wednesday and Thursday. Our panel is on Thursday. Wednesday, the Claudia Jones School for Political Education virtual study group on Black women radicalism starts on Wednesday. I'm in that. I'm excited for that. Cannot wait. There's a lot of readings. Many of them I have read, but I need to go back over them. This week's theme is slavery, so looking forward to that. I'm going to be on the Revolutionary Blackout Network, y'all, on Friday at 2 p.m. talking about God knows what. I guess it's you just talk about anything. So that's going to be dope. I was wondering if they're ever going to invite me on their platform. It's been years, and I'm like, y'all got all the Black radicals. What's going on? So I'm excited for that. That should be a good conversation. And then finally on Saturday, two more things. The last event that I have this week is the Black Education and the Struggle for Anti-Colonial Free Speech panel on Saturday. So there's a link. Can we copy that link? So there's a link if you want to sign up for that panel. It's myself, Robin Kelly, Omali Yeshitela, and some other folks who are going to be talking about not only what's happening to who are three, but just basically the attack on free speech and its effect on Black studies scholars and Black scholars more broadly. So pop into that. Last thing, y'all. So I received a Fraser Center Labor Education Development Grant to develop a course called Black Women in Labor from the New Negro to Black Power. Woo-hoo. So that's dope. It's going to be part of the labor curriculum, cross-listed with African American Studies. So I was happy to get that grant so I can have some summer funding. But also, I'm going to test out, because y'all know I'm going to write this little book article situation on triple oppression, jeopardy, and intersectionality. And so some of that, putting together this syllabus and teaching the class will help me to sort of get some ideas together about that, to do some of that reading, et cetera, et cetera. So that's me.
My life is not nearly as interesting right now.
Hold on. Kenyatta already went on bad faith. Don't think she's going to have me back. For a number of reasons. Actually, for one reason in particular. But yes. Anyway. Sorry.
So the biggest thing I have going on right now is that in the AAPR-PGC, we are working on preparing for an orientation for new members, which we have a lot of our foundational documents, but one of the things I'm responsible for is pulling together what we are going to give to new members on gender. And so that is, I think, going to take a good amount of work, because I think a lot of the things that I see on Black women, third world women, African women, and gender, they come at it from different perspectives. Like some of them are very sort of developmental IR related kind of things in terms of contemporary things. Like there are older things that kind of talk about stuff. But so that's kind of one of the main things I'm going to be putting my energy into. So as I kind of put that reading list together and things together, I'll probably share more with you all.
Getting that mean age of the party down.
Yes, it will be nice. Still struggling with writing. This summer, y'all know, it's supposed to be my summer dedicated to.
It is.
It's the summer dedicated to the book.
You got this.
Summer
just started. It's June.
But I know, but I'm just not, like, writing is just so not, I don't know. I don't know that I should say these things out loud, but it's just so not a medium that I find useful for my own thinking and development. Like, and I don't mean writing in general, but I mean for me, it's not a thing. So that book, Rouse Pasta, that's actually one of the ones I'm talking about. The Sylvia Tamale, I think it's decolonial something, Afrofeminism is the one you're talking about, because there's a final chapter in there towards Pan-African feminism or feminist Pan-Africanism. And again, I think she's got some good perspectives, but then I also think, and she does have a good critique of like some of the kind of supra state structures like the AU and all that kind of stuff, but still not quite the same understanding of Pan-Africanism that I think I would have. But I also think that the whole purpose of having study groups, right, I think, is to be able to have things to come to butt up against, right? So there might be things that you agree with, and there might be things that you pull out from it, right? And so I do think that we'll probably end up reading that text, although I think there's plenty of things to dissect from that.
So what do you need, like, for your writing? What do you need? Like, what feels like a tangible or viable first step? We got to support her, y'all. She got to get this goddamn book done. Shit. Like, there's just no way around it. And it's like, it's not going to be through osmosis. So you got to.
Or otherwise, I'll be unemployed.
I doubt that. But, so, like, what, like, because I'm sure there's many people that struggle with writing. So, like, what do you think? And y'all, if you have any, if you're one that struggles with writing, but have something that's particularly motivating or whatever, like, you need to support our comrade.
You know what I think it is about writing for me? It's just that it's not that I feel like I have nothing to say about Drum Circle before writing. It's not that I feel like I have nothing to say, but I don't know that I have something so unique to say that warrants writing something about it. Like that's like, I'm like, if I'm pulling from a bunch of different people who are already talking about this stuff, I don't really know what it is that I'm adding to this conversation. And I can't say that it's nothing, because when people have read things that I've written, they seem to get things out of it. But I typically don't go back to things that I write. It's just, I don't know. So
I just feel like if Kendi can write a book, several very terrible books, you can write one.
But
good
here's
one.
What Kendi has that I don't. He has an inflated sense of self. That's what I'm saying. And so I do think there's something there in that. But I look at who is gender epistemology in Africa. Is that yeah. So yeah, Ralph. Until I get until I hear someone say something wrong. And see, that's the other thing, right? Like, I don't want my only way of engaging with writing to always be about critiquing someone else. Like, I actually do want it to be generative, informative. Like, I want it to contribute to something. I don't want to only engage in that process of critiquing. And it's something that we'll actually talk about that more when we read a John Malumi's piece, just in terms of principles. I think that for me, that place of critique is not an authentic place for me. When I engage in things, like there are things that, like, I disagree with, but I don't know that even in disagreeing with those things, I'm that motivated to, like, sit down and write a whole thesis about what I disagree with, as opposed to, like, what is it that I actually want to put out there. So that I think is
I think I have a hybrid. So I think that I write a lot of critiques, but it's always because I have something else to say. Like, this is why I don't really review books. I don't know that I do too many just critiques, because that's not generative at all. But how about this? What if you're not critiquing, but you're contributing to the dialogue? It's an offering, right? It's a responsibility to folks who have gotten you where you are, right? It's just one way of paying homage. Like, I know you're like, yeah, sound good, because I'd be like that too. But, like, it's just a way of reframing, right? That, like, it's not even about, your individual voice per se, but it's part of a collective dialogical process, and writing is just one, like, means. So
I mean, all these things always sound good in theory, but then when I sit down in front of the paper, it's like,
well, don't sit down in front of the paper. Talk first.
I know, and everybody keeps saying that. That's what I thought. It was oh yeah, Ronke, oh yeah, woman. Yes, I am familiar with that. And we've read pieces of that too, from The Invention of Women also. I think, did we read something for that on here? I can't remember. I know we talked about it. I can't remember if we actually read about it. But yeah, no, I mean, I think, again, that is actually advice I've been getting since I was writing my dissertation, to just record myself talking. Like, every time I go talk to my advisor, she was like, you just need to write what you just said. I'm like, I don't know what I just said. Like, I just be saying shit sometimes.
Literally, when I'm coaching, like, I record our coaching sessions, and then I have them go back and listen to, like, what did you just say? Like, I just had a conversation with, she just defended her dissertation, actually, but she was, like, struggling with her last chapter. And I was like, well, why is this significant? What's important about it? And then she said it, and I said, okay, well, you can go back and watch that. And that's just the basis of what you can write, Yeah. And so, writing is fighting, but you're a pugilist. So you got this.
Pugilist meaning?
A boxer. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Okay, what does this say? Yeah, pay homage to my teachers before I teach. Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Lord Prince.
I don't have a jarring political critique. No. So are you talking about when I was on Bad Faith?
Yeah, I don't think that's what. Yeah.
No, when I was on Bad Faith, it was well received then we had her on LDI, and she was less well received because of our viewership, a la y'all. Then I was received on her show, and I think, and we just haven't talked since. So, you know, but it's no smoke. You know, it's no smoke. With Brianna Joy Graf, she asked me to come back on. I would, but I also am not holding my breath.
Yeah. Okay, I guess the only other, y'all, I messed up my foot. So I'm around here hobbling around, and I might be in a boot. I'm not excited about that. And do you know that I messed up my foot wearing a bad pair of shoes? Like, I didn't trip, I didn't twist my ankle, nothing. And is this what getting old is? Because this shit is for the birds. Like, why do I have a whole fucked up foot from just a day of wearing? And they're flat sandals too. It's just that I have flat feet. And it was in my arch, and then it created a problem.
But I wonder if it was heels. I'm like, what happened?
You know I don't wear heels like that.
That's why I thought it might have been heels.
It's actually, I'll show you what the shoes look like. But anyway, I don't know if there's other thing I want to talk about, so I might just leave it.
My man says Skechers. Snoop is he wears Skechers. He's getting paid to do it. And Martha Stewart actually was like, take the Skechers deal. He got, I think it was Kevin Durant. He got one of his little basketball homies wearing Skechers.
My God. Yeah, no, I don't think I've ever owned a pair of Skechers. No shade to the Skechers owners, but I don't think I have. But anywho.
Yeah, the last time I wore Skechers was when I worked at Hooters. Before
y'all started Hooters.
When I was 19, and before y'all start analyzing my chesticles, like, yes, I worked there, and it was fine. Then I got in a fight.
Did you have a black clientele? Were they more interested in the bottom half?
No. I mean, I think it was a college thing. So it was like, you know, if you're cute and whatever. But I also am a terrible waitress. I've had several serving jobs and I've been good at 0 of them. But, you know. Anyway, shout out to Skechers. Okay. All right, comments.
All right. So the first is from Muhammad Ali, who I mentioned last time, who's from 1919 Mag out of Toronto. He said, shout out Layla, represent 1919. Appreciate the knowledge sharing. Yeah, I got to get back to him on the edits for the interview too.
And just for the record, it's not spelled like Muhammad Ali the boxer. It's like Mohammed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. Michael.
Not Muhammad, like a Muslim.
Like a Muslim. So Michael T said, we certainly need to know more about Shirley Graham Du Bois. Absolutely. Because right now the only biography, there's a few dissertations, but the only biography is Joe Horn's biography. But I think
y'all don't know that Sharice got the Shirley Graham Du Bois tea. She liked to be in the archival notes. I think that was in response to me saying I was gonna read the book about with Kwame Nkrumah.
Yeah, I'll save my commentary on Shirley Graham Du Bois.
Michael T also said, I find Musa to be very impressive. I think we all do.
Musa is the bomb. All right, Mark Dub said, liberate the resources for real. Somebody get Daruba's papers from Princeton, please. LOL. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I felt the same way about Angela Davis's papers at the Radcliffe, but they paying. Like the Ivies are paying to have those collections there. But yeah, these places that like wall off their campuses and stuff, that's just not a good place. When you have places like Freedom Archive, you know what I mean? So it's an interesting dynamic. But we will do what we can to democratize as many resources as possible.
Musa said, forgot to also say thank you to Peace, Land, and Bread magazine. How do you say it? Is it Iskra? How do you say it?
It looks like Iskra.
Iskra Books for working with me to publish a really beautiful, well-designed book. Working with communist publishers is important.
Absolutely. It's a gorgeous book. We love it. Tino said, I'm in my Settle My Quarrels era. Cue the most dramatic, salacious epoch anyone's ever seen. Whirly eyes, clown face. That is true. If my Settle Your Quarrels era is in fact the most dramatic, salacious epoch anyone's ever seen, that will in fact be clown shoes and trash. So you're right, but inshallah, it will be a self-reflective, more peace-driven, more conversation and curiosity-driven epoch. Like I just handled this comment. See, Settle Your Quarrels.
Except for the fake voice. Okay, what is this? Norma Dean Murphy said, "Don't sweat the small stuff, settle those contradictions. At 69 years on this earth, I refuse to be moved by other people's issues or opinions. As they say, everybody has one, LOL. I respect both of you. You remind me of my daughter. Peace and blessings." Thank you for that nice comment. You know, one thing my mom used to say to me, she always say, "Don't let other people determine who you are. You be who you are, and like just don't always be reactive to people." And that's something that is not always the easiest thing to do, but it is something that I always hear in my mind, that we determine who we want to be. Don't let our reactionary, moments allow other people to make us be somebody that we're not.
Very true, which is why you'll be blocked. C. Lauren said, "Beautiful show and guest. Love the clarity surrounding the term creatives versus cultural worker and the obfuscation that the former entails. I am always wondering about the influence of ecology in revolutionary praxis. For example, how land is central to the Palestinian struggle. Do you two have suggestions for works interrogating ecology and its importance to revolution?"
Sith Lord person said, "I just got paid, but I can't send money on this channel." We're not monetized, so there's nowhere to send money for us anyway. So put that money to other good use.
So in terms of books, there's a book, like, I think it's called 1,000 Black Anthropocenes or None. Oh. There's one that's called like Black Ecologies. There's another, so any work by J.T. Rohn, he's actually doing a lot of different type of multimedia work around at the intersection of ecology, revolution, and like anarchic ways of being. So those are just some. I'm sure that there's way more, but and then I think there's some Republic of New Africa writings that focus on the land, and of course the whole body of indigenous scholarship about stewarding the land as a facet of decolonization.
Okay. Joey Africa says, I'm guessing 1052 is the mark on the show. "Please don't curse me out or block me, Dr. CBS. You are one of the sharpest illuminaries in this era. But can the beef be squashed with you and BPM? I think Ball's radio background mixed with you all's encyclopedic knowledge of everything radical made that version of LDI so potent." How do you want to respond to that?
The beef has been squashed. So, and I'll tell them to squash the beef with me. Because the thing is, the beef was squashed. Then there was just goofy shit that would happen from time to time. But like, the beef is squashed. And I would, if I were, like, I still collaborate with people on BPM. So that, like, so Black Mist, and then I was on Sundiata's show.
Jackie is the people, family.
Yeah, like Jackie, Erica, like Geechee. So like, there's no beef with BPM. Like literally, there's no beef with BPM.
Even when we left, it wasn't beef with BPM. There were things that were handled in a way that we didn't feel like were good for us, and so we left.
Yeah, tell BPM to settle their quarrels with us
or with themselves, because there are other things happening over there that have nothing to do with us. So
So Raoul's Pasta Sauce, I wasn't referring to Black women rap. I don't know if you're talking to me, but what I mentioned was like the Claudia Jones School for Political Education. They're having a Black women radicals like theme for like a study group this summer. So like for several weeks. That's what I was referring to. Yeah.
Okay.
And then Joey Africa said, "Dr. CBS, why aren't you a Bell Hooks fan?" You know what I will say is that I'm not a fan of anybody. Like, I'm not a fan of anybody except maybe Gerald Horne, but it's just, she's not legend for me. Like, I think a lot of people get a lot out of her writing. As an academic, it's weird to me when people don't use any citations. Like, I don't like that, because I also think that citation is also a sort of practice of stewardship and not just propriety. It's just like it's of stewardship and like conversation and staging dialogue. So I think books with no citations are strange. She had a very problematic take on the Central Park Five, but nobody is reducible to their best or their worst qualities. But I just find the writings of other people more are better. Or more interesting, and just better. That's how I choose to spend my energy. So, but RIP to Bell Hooks. She did a lot for a lot of people.
She did.
Anywho,
when she was in her Beyonce is a terrorist era, that was interesting.
Yeah. And then interpersonally, people have some strange stories about her. But everybody, but whatever. You can't, again, nobody is reducible to their best or their worst qualities, nor their best or their worst interactions. So
shout out to you, Elon, for hearing my Mo Better comment.
Mo Better.
Yeah. and make it Mo Better. Okay. You know what's crazy is that was my ex's absolute favorite movie.
Oh, Mo Better
Blue. And I love that movie, but I just don't like that it's attached to him for me.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay.
So for study, y'all. We want to read this piece called Organizer Do's and Don'ts by Ajamu Umi. And I feel like this is particularly salient right now as we're organizing this faculty and staff for Justice in Palestine chapter. And just in general, since we always encourage folks to join an organization, as we're joining organizations and stepping into our role as organizers, what are some things that we should consider?
Okay, so we're going to read this aloud.
Okay. So Ajamu Umi says, my license to speak about this comes from the fact I've been involved in organizing since 1979 when I joined the Pan-Africanist Secretariat, Brother Oba Tashaka, for those that know, at 17 years old. In 1984, I heard Kwame Ture speak, and I joined the All African People's Revolutionary Party. I've been an organizer member of the AAPRP ever since. That means decades of working with peoples, all types of people. I've worked in organizing efforts in Africa, in Europe, and the Caribbean. I've worked with African street organizations, what you probably would call gangs, church groups, women's collectives. I worked with students. I've worked with African people from every segment of society, and I've also worked with European allies, indigenous people, Asian allies, and Palestinian comrades. I've done significant work with organizations as broad as the Nation of Islam to White Women Against Imperialism.
This is just, I don't know why I'm saying that. And I wonder, he probably just did it for diversity in terms of it. But do you think there's a qualitative difference between allies and comrades?
Yes, I do.
Come back to that.
Yes, okay.
My political organizing work created the opportunity to work as a paid organizer for the labor movement, which I do as well. In that work, I work with right-wing workers who have no experience interacting with African people. I'm still responsible for moving these folks. So with all that outstanding experience, if there's one thing I know about, is how to work successfully with people. I'm not saying I know everything, because the more work I do, the more I realize I need to learn. But I am saying I have at least learned some valuable lessons that some of our newer organizers would do well to pay close attention to.
So starting with the don'ts, no-nos in organizing work 101. Number 1. Make sure you are in an organization. If not, your message is you don't seriously believe what you are spouting because you don't think enough of it to create a plan and work to bring it into existence. So yes, I think that is very important. We're always preaching, join an organization, a movement organization. And I will say, especially in light of self-criticism, like stick with the organization. And even so I'm a member of Black Alliance for Peace. I cannot say I've contributed very much recently. I'm still trying to figure out sort of exactly where I fit in there, but stick with it, continue to engage, talk to comrades in the organization, and even especially when it gets hard, stay in an organization.
The second one, don't criticize other people's work. It makes you look like a hater and opens you up to questions about what you are doing, which is usually not too much fun if you have time and lack the focus to criticize other people's efforts. And the way I interpret this, right, is not that anything is beyond sort of reproach or correction or analysis, but that I think that when we just engage in criticism without anything else to back it up, one, like if you aren't actually already working together, two, if you don't actually have something to offer in lieu of that criticism, then it just becomes, you just sort of shouting at a wall, and it doesn't actually do the work that you think it is if you don't have something constructive to offer from that. And so I don't necessarily take that to mean no criticism at all, but I think that there is a particular kind of way to engage with criticisms, and I think that tends to be better received internally in constructive manners. I don't know if you have another take on that.
I think that's right. Yeah. If there is a problem with another organizer and or organization, take that problem directly to the people involved and engage them in principal ideological struggle around the problem. Do not, under any circumstances, talk about people behind their backs. It will come back against you and will make you look cowardly and dishonest, the crippling ingredient of anyone attempting to become a respected organizer. Plus, principal struggle creates a stronger movement. I think that's right. And, speaking of VPM, right, I think that there were good way. We did this to the best of our ability, but there are also ways that we did not involve the entire collective. And I think that ultimately the collective did suffer because they continue to have particular issues that did not get resolved because of how we were trying to be ethical and not like, we're trying. So I think, but I do think it's important because we can confuse like criticism, like so principal criticism with gossip, right? And I think that keeping those two separate is actually really important. And if you must gossip, just do it with your best friend, like I do. Get it out of your system, but like don't do it in like a public way.
Absolutely. And don't be writing shit down either.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Number 4. Do not permit yourself to see the struggle simply as an extension of your personal experiences. You are just a speck in this work. Remember that and carry yourself with humility at all times. Obviously, this is so important. And I think, this is something that I think about a lot because there are experiences that I have that I think are important. And that are important to have learned from, but I also recognize that they are not everyone's experiences, right? But I do think it's important to think through, what ways are things connected to who we are as people, but also to recognize that like there are all of these things, all of this type of work is bigger than what it is, bigger than us as individuals. And that remember to carry yourself with humility at all times, I think is really important because I don't know how any person can engage in organizing work and any kind of work to actually really help other people without a level of humility. Because even if for a fact, let's just say for a fact that something people are choosing to do or engage in is the wrong thing to do, there's no way to reach those people without engaging with them with some level of humility in terms of being able to explain what it is maybe that you see might not be working in a particular instance, maybe what it is that you learned from your past experiences. But that humility is really, I think, a critical element of how you engage with other human beings.
I mean, I think the other side to that too, or this other thing that I was thinking about is like, sometimes using like our organizations as like thinking that they're kind of like therapy sessions or ways to work out. I think that we all, to work out like particular traumas, right? I think that we should have ethical and affirming relations, but that doesn't mean, but that's different than that's important to political work, but we can't reduce our political work to like sort of working out our personal experiences and feelings. Oftentimes that can undermine and disrupt work. And that leads to some of the things that we see, like with people kind of collapsing organizations based on very personal and particular experiences.
And you just, sometimes it's hard to get to the work. Like, I just remember when I was younger and doing a lot of organizing stuff with a lot of various different groups. And I really did feel like, there were a lot of folks who came to those spaces who were really in dire situations. So it was understandable that they were coming to those situations with certain kinds of desires, but it also, if that is not actually, if an organization is not designed as a mutual aid organization,
right?
If that's not the work that the organization does, then trying to use that place as only that, it takes away from the work that we're attempting to do. So,
yeah. So I think, and we're not all equipped for that, right? We're not all equipped to handle those situations. So I think as comrades, like having that discernment, like how can we support you as you go through this without necessarily dedicating the whole space to that type of thing. All right. Okay, number 5. Do not view the struggle as the flavor of the week. Get a focus, people, and stick to it. If you change what you are doing every other week, you send a clear message that you are not serious about anything.
So get a line. Get a line and stick to it.
Right.
Okay, so now for the do's. Great things in organizing 101. Number 1, make sure your organization has a dedicated study process where you can rotate facilitators. Everyone is required to participate, and you have praise and criticism process to properly assess your work. I think that's really important. It's really important for a number of reasons. One, like I remember when I was, I guess like mid to late 20s working with this group, Black International Solidarity. And it ended up really falling on myself and one of my other close friends. We were doing all the work to coordinate the reading.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, we were doing all the work to coordinate like food and snacks for people to like come and like be comfortable. And it, you know, and initially we kind of took that role on because, you know, we just wanted to get things going. But after a certain amount of time, there needs to be a rotation of all of these things, right? Somebody else needs to be able to facilitate. Somebody else needs to be able to choose readings. Somebody else needs to think that it's important that if we're going to be together for 3 hours discussing, that we bring food. Like, I don't necessarily think that you got to give people four course meals. I can't talk, but I do think that when you do bring human beings together for long periods of time, it is important to think about our basic human needs like food. And I don't think that work, like it usually does, should only be left to the women in the organization.
Right.
And then that process of criticism and self-criticism, I think, is really important. And also that he puts specifically praise and criticism, which I think is important too, because it is important to acknowledge what we've done right and where we have taken, you know, missteps or whatever.
Yeah, I remember in 2016 when I was at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, we organized like an occupation. We occupied the African American Studies department of all, like they were trying to get rid of like the undergraduates advisor, which ultimately they did. We did not actually win that struggle, but I think we held that building for maybe 2 weeks. And part of something that I noticed there was like bringing people along. If people actually want, sometimes they just don't know how to start. Yep. So asking people to do things and then helping them when they need help, even if you feel like you could do it more efficiently, like that's not the point, because you always want whatever it is to be sustained like after you leave. So that rotation I think is really important. Having patience and respect for comrades as they're learning to do all of these different roles is important. So the next one is use the praise criticism process to challenge yourself honestly around improving your weaknesses. Now, I think in both is important because sometimes we're just overly critical, and sometimes that can be liberalism, right? If you think that everything is on your shoulders and you don't have a true collective consciousness, it could be too much self-criticism to the point where it's just sort of self-flagellation and it's not actually to the end of doing better. So the praise is important.
Like white guilt.
Like, exactly. But if you're only praising yourself and never embracing any criticism, then that's also problematic, because then you can't really have a true sense of how things are evolving, growing, and developing. So I think both sides of those coins are important.
Not me getting this one. Practice your writing skills by putting together articles, leaflets, etc. that address the problems you are fighting against. Getting people to read is a critical component of this struggle, so help out by developing your skills while contributing relevant material. Now, I will say this, like in terms of walking, Lord, in terms of writing for other people, I think I'm just better at showing up for other people than I am for myself. I think that's part of one of my kind of struggles, is that like when other people ask me to do things and I have to do things for other people, I'm good at showing up for that. But the writing for myself, I struggle with. So like I had to write a solidarity speech for the Haitian Flag Day. I had to write a statement on behalf of the party about gender and women, which I did. And I do those, but they're also much shorter too. They're not like a book. So that's another thing. But anyway.
Yeah. And I think I like the different genres of writing, right? So it's like if writing is not your favorite thing, you could just write a paragraph, right? You might write a tweet, like whatever, like if you all have a social media thing. So like practicing writing though is really important as just one of several other media, right? All right, develop strong habits in your organizing work and study. Okay, hold on. Develop strong habits in your organizing work and study and work. Develop strong habits in your organizing work around study and work. Be where you are supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. Don't be late and don't make excuses. If you are always consistent, the message you will be sending out is that you are serious about your work and there is an urgency to make that work happen. If you are always late and disorganized, the message you send is that you say it matters, but you really don't believe it. A credibility problem again. be on time, y'all. And that includes, I think, like with events, start your events on time as much as possible. Like, yeah. And we're, I think it's a balance because sometimes our people show up late. And so we're like, we're just going to wait, 5 or 10 or 20 minutes. But it's also, you have to be mindful of the people who did show up on time. So if there's 3 people there at the beginning, then, start events on time. So, but I think it is a sort of balance, or to let people know from the outset that the start times it's flexible. When you say 6, that could mean anywhere between 6 and 6:20. So for example, when I was in college, we just had something called, we had something called Berkeley time, which meant everything started 10 minutes past the hour, right? So we just expected that to happen. So
I think, I like to refer to, we call it color people time or decolonial time.
I call it socialist time.
Well, so like when I got to the Haitian Flag Day, we got to the Haitian Flag Day thing on time, right? Mm-hmm. 5 o'clock. Child, it didn't start till 6:15. And it's so funny because they were like, oh, we saw you get here on time, and we just want to apologize. I was like, there's nothing to apologize. I know how we roll. I know what we do. And even I think for us, like, I think that point about wanting to wait for people so doors open at is actually a better thing, because that does not mean the event starts at that time. It just means you can come in and start getting together. But even with ALD, I mean, there weren't that many people there. And I think part of it is when you have a slew of speakers, it does feel weird when you start a program on time, there's 3 people in the audience. Your speaker only is going to get the benefit of 3 people listening to them. Whereas if you waited another 10 or 15 minutes, people might trickle in and then they don't feel that way. So I think there is this delicate balance of like, how much can we start later to like let people fill in, but also respect people's time.
But part of what Ajamu Umi is saying too is that create a culture of being on time. So if people miss the event more than one time because they know you're going to start on time, then maybe they will be on time. Like, so I think it's sort of give and take. But if you don't have a sort of history of starting on time, people are like, oh, I could just show up 30 minutes late.
Yes, that's right. But I also just like, but we just don't do that. Like,
who was we? Because I know plenty of people. I know plenty of people who be on time. There are just as many people who are on time as there are who are not on time, and so like it is a balance.
My favorite story that I'll never forget, when I was doing field work in Venezuela, there was a women's group that we were supposed to meet with Chavez, and they told me to come to the train station, and I got my ass up at 4 o'clock in the morning because it was in a body, like in a hood neighbor community that wasn't safe for me to go in by myself. And so I get to the train station. I get there at 7 o'clock in the morning. Child, I spent 4 hours at that train station, and they kept calling me like, no, like we're coming. And this is like a normal thing. Or like the whole time I'm doing research in Latin America, like I was supposed to be meeting with somebody at 11. People walk in at 2 o'clock talking about La Lluvia, the rain. And it's a normal thing, like nobody cares. I just had to let it go because it would just be stressing me out, because I'd be stressed out all the time. Like, no, people gonna get here when they get here.
Context absolutely matters, but if you have control over it, I think you're saying create a context where people are on time, but also don't be neurotic about it if it's not.
The way daylight saving time less than 1 year.
Listen. Yeah. So it's an ongoing thing, but I like the sentiment.
Yes, absolutely. Is it me?
Yeah.
Okay.
You.
Lastly, base your personal behavior and your organizational work around one principle: what's right and just. An African proverb is, even a dead fish can swim with the current. Don't be a dead fish. Well, I think that speaks for itself. Don't be a dead fish.
Don't be a dead fish. We call it the Frito bag. Don't be the Frito bag. Because if you get like the mixed chips, like, Ruffles, Cheetos.
But I like Fritos though. I like corn chips.
Well, the Frito bag. Yeah, okay. Well, whatever your Frito bag is, don't be the Frito bag. All right. If you heed these do's and don'ts, you are guaranteed to be an effective and respected organizer. Everyone won't like you because waging principled struggle, being consistent and making things happen, challenges those who desire to function without accountability. But just remember Sekou Touré's correct statement that, quote, if the enemy isn't doing anything against you, you aren't doing anything, end quote. That's great for this person that keep popping up in the chat talking shit. Not that I'm doing anything great. But anyway, do the do's and don't do the don'ts, and you will become stronger. You will also realize that all work is important and should be respected. I always know someone doesn't know what they're talking about when they start talking about work that isn't relevant. Even standing on a corner with a sign saying organize is good work, and anyone who does this work seriously knows that. So take these and use them. They don't belong to me, they belong to humanity, and make sure to share them. Good organizing to you. So that was that. Y'all, this person is very pressed to continue to make
so
accounts.
Childish. Like, what?
That is hilarious. And here's the thing is I knew that was a troll because I saw that it said this person followed your channel. So I was like, and that's the one that left that crazy comment. And so like they just keep on. I think I blocked that one. Oh, whoops.
Okay.
So that's crazy. Like this person is very, very pressed. And it's like, listen, join an organization, you will have way less time.
But also it's just not even about anything. Like, anyway. This is all time stuff. Yeah, so we were in another, so we couldn't see y'all's comments while we were reading. So I just want to look back through. This is all about CP time.
People come to our events from out of state, so if we delayed anything, somebody gonna stick the FBI in us out of spite. Well,
I can understand that. I mean, well, not the FBI,
right?
But I can understand coming from a long way and being frustrated. Okay, all right, cool.
Elon, you didn't miss nothing. It's we
really
need to start. I'm like, see, this is the problem with having like a live thing. I'm like, do we need to make a moderator for like, because this is crazy. Okay, so there's another reading that we wanted to do about students. How are we on time? Do we want to read the whole thing, or?
I mean, we can do that next time too, because it doesn't matter. Where is it?
We can say if you want to have like a better discussion on it. Do you want to?
We can't. It's really not that long, actually, even though it kind of looks like it. Because it ends here, but it's really not that long. But it starts there, so I don't know.
Okay, so there's this other reading from Socialism and Revolution about students that we wanted to bring up. And
so initially we were thinking about having read this as a companion when we had Austin and Mamadou and what was the other guy's name? I forgot. Prahlad on the show. But that conversation, as you all know, was very rich, and so we ended up going on. But this we wanted to have a conversation about the position of students and the role of students and sort of what student power is, if it is a thing at all. And so this reading kind of really prompted that for us. I don't know. How do you want to go about it? Do you want to start reading from the beginning or what?
Yeah. So,
okay. And for this one, you all, this one is in our drive. So if other folks want to pull it up, you should be able to access it. Okay. So I'll just start. Can I make this bigger? Oh, shoot. I didn't mean to do all that. Well, if people can't see it. For the most oppressed sector of the working class to break through the barriers of ideological captivity and repression, the credibility of the dominant ideology must already have been weakened and the established order determined. This, as we have seen, has been done by the armed imperialist struggle in the Third World, and mainly in Vietnam. But the ideological effects of this weakening do not immediately reach down into the most oppressed sector of the capitalist nation's population. In all capitalist countries, the sector that has been most immediately sensitive to these effects and has gradually made them felt by the rest of the people has been the students. Their protest movement did not, however, make them a revolutionary vanguard. Its role was more subtle. By attacking the dominant ideology in the very centers where it is traditionally produced, the student vanguards brought its discredit into the open and encouraged other groups to reject established values and to wage violent actions against the institutional authorities. There is, of course, a whole complex of reasons why students should be the most readily available sector for ideological subversion and open revolt. Without going into too much detail, it is worthwhile examining the most important ones. They point to a key contradiction of highly developed capitalism. the system's inability to satisfy new non-material needs, which it cannot help generating.
In previous times, universities were, to a large extent, training centers for the children of the bourgeoisie, whom they impregnated with bourgeois culture and values. They prepared them for the positions of privilege and power to which they were predestined by birth. The cultural bias of the whole system was such as to bar promotion and access to institutions of higher learning to those who did not have the right family background. All this no longer holds true. The development of means of production has intellectualized work and increased the need for intellectual labor. On the average, the knowledge required to, at any given moment by any available job is not greater than in the past. Most of the time, it is more specialized and narrower, but the required knowledge changes at a quickening pace as scientific and technological innovation accelerates. Therefore, the acquisition of a predetermined skill and knowledge is no longer a sufficient preparation for available jobs. The main quality required by industry, business, and administration is adaptability, i.e. the ability to acquire new knowledge, new skills to change. As a consequence, good training must go beyond the teaching of skills. It must rest on an education, giving students a measure of self-reliance and the ability to keep learning by themselves. But as we shall see, the capabilities education fosters are frustrated by the capitalist division of labor.
Moreover, more students are being trained than will be needed. This inflation of students is due not only to industry's desire to have a reserve army of intellectual labor to draw from. More fundamentally, it is a result of the rising cultural level of the overall population. The cultural barriers that prevented the children of all but the upper classes from entering universities are breaking down. Although I would argue they're kind of getting built back up again now. Mm-hmm. The bias system of preselection of students has proved faulty. And as a significant proportion of each generation of adolescents invades the colleges and university, an old myth is exposed. The myth that higher learning is an open door to social promotion.
So why don't you have anything you want to, I just want to check the chat. Do you have anything you want to add in?
I think at the moment though, thinking about what it is that students are actually able to do, right? Mm-hmm. In terms of their positionality, because one, we've talked about this, like students being in this kind of transitory space. I think even more and more with like elite institutions, like I think it's a little bit different with like for you at Wayne State, when I was at UMass Boston, when you're at state schools, where the population is actually lives around mm-hmm. and you can actually like build community there. I think there's one thing, but there's a different thing when students actually are like coming in and mm-hmm. leaving. And I think that is much more reflective of, not always, but that is more reflective of a different class status for a lot of folks, because most folks I think are going to more local universities across the board.
Yeah. The other, what you were, to your point about how it's sort of, I think that's an important point, that how it's becoming the class project of the college and university is reemerging mm-hmm. as colleges become too expensive to attend, as the debt load is untenable, as college is less and less a pathway to actually being employed. Mm-hmm. So there's all sorts of reasons why I think higher education, until we actually seize higher education and truly democratize it, like CUNY was for a short while, right? Then it's going to continue. I think it's going to re-narrow itself back to being.
And this is connected to that, but not so much to the actual point of the reading, though. But one thing that I have learned in my time going between state schools and private schools is that we have this idea that actually state schools are cheaper, right? They're more affordable. But I think, what I've noticed is that there are more and more of these elite institutions that have these tuition waivers or these other kinds of programs, such that it ends up being that lower income students are actually faring better in terms of debt at these elite institutions, but because they've been culturally represented in a particular mm-hmm. kind of way as being, out of reach, then a lot of us are not even considering those places. And I'm not even necessarily pushing it there, but I don't think it is the case as much now as it used to be that state schools are the cost-effective option in a lot of ways, because people are really taking out huge ass loans to even go to state schools now.
Which is wild.
It is. So what happened here? I don't know what you did. I can't get back to my other tabs. Hold on. Wait, what happened to my tabs?
Oh, oops. All I did was I unmaximized the window. Sorry, y'all.
Where?
Technology.
Oh, okay. Did I close it? Okay.
Okay.
Wait,
So
it's not shared though. Y'all be struggling over here.
okay. The link between academic degrees and social promotion could be maintained only as long as higher learning, though theoretically open to all capable of it, was in practice restricted to a small minority. The traditional struggle of liberals and in Europe of socialists and communists for the democratization of the educational system turned out to be a fallacy when, in the 1960s, an ever-growing proportion of adolescents won access to universities only to be eliminated in the course of their studies by new and arbitrary mechanisms of selection, or else to end up either actually or intellectually underemployed. Still the case. Looked at the adjunctification of higher education. Initially, the struggle waged by Western European students against these new mechanisms of elimination bore the clear imprint of petty bourgeois ideology. They were fighting for the universal right to study, i.e. the right to win social promotion through learning. Gradually, they became aware that the demand was self-contradictory. If all are to be allowed to study, it is obvious that all cannot be socially promoted.
And just as a point of reference, this piece was first published in French in 1960s. Wait, no, I'm not. In 1967. Yeah, but not in French. Yeah, but it was in 1967, just to know like what the context is at this moment. The demand that all are to be allowed and enabled to study makes sense only if the right to study is divorced from the right to social privilege. Therefore, the right to study became a demand per se. It could be claimed only on the ground of free access to culture. The acquisition of culture was held to be an end in itself that could confer no privilege whatsoever. It should be considered normal that university graduates work with their hands and that workers went to a university. The cultural battle thus turned into a battle against social barriers, against cultural inequality, against the social and technical division of labor, against the separation of intellectual from manual work. This struggle, however, could make sense only if the nature of culture itself was questioned and if class characteristics attacked.
If studying was to become open to all as an end in itself, its method and content had to be redefined. Since degrees could secure neither higher incomes nor rewarding and meaningful work, students had no reason to put up with any kind of regimentation at school or with traditional academic standards and methods. Studying had to become an end in itself, which means it had to hold some intrinsic interest and had to be related to what were felt to be the real issues. Learning could become worthwhile only if one could learn how to shape one's life differently and how to shape a different world.
This rebellion, which exploded after years of maturation, 1967 in West Germany and Italy, 1968 in France, not to speak of the sustained student guerrilla movement in Japan and in the United States, drew some inspiration from the Chinese Cultural Revolution. The students' insurrection was bound to reach down sooner or later into the factories and offices. People who had rebelled against regimentation at school could hardly be expected to accept regimentation at work, nor were they likely to accept meaningless and stupefying jobs after they had rejected meaningless and stultifying teaching. They were no longer prepared to become cogs and cadres in the capitalist machine. Their rejection of a hierarchically based educational system was bound to lead to the rejection of the hierarchical division of labor and of capitalist relations of production generally.
So it's interesting. I think that this is not the case anymore, right? I don't know if U.S. education, except for a very brief moment in Black and ethnic studies, actually got rid of that careerism. Like, I don't necessarily know if that's the case. And the other thing too is that I don't know how well, especially now, how well it carries over. Because this is a particular critique of student organizing, right? Is that it's transient, right? You're there for a small amount of time. And I think that the transient nature is manifested in, and it seems like every 4 years, students have a protest and they reinvent the wheel. Like when student organize, or when, student uprisings happen, they don't leave very much behind for the next set of students oftentimes, right? Some do, some don't. Even the organization itself, like it will just fall, will deregister and not be a student organization anymore. And if it's that ephemeral lens that students have with organizing, then I don't know how likely it is to carry over. And again, that might be specific to the type of institution, like if it's an Ivy or like a baby Ivy or et cetera.
Well, what I was gonna say is I think it's worse and different. So like, with my parents, right? My dad went to Shaw, my mom went to NC State, and they stayed living in the same city that they went to college in. And so that remained a base for them. They continued to organize on college campuses. But I also think it's a testament to even when you were talking about the adjunctification of higher ed labor, because one of the things that is supposed to be a continuing force is advisorship. And if you don't have faculty that are able to stay on and maintain and allow students to understand, okay, these were the things that were happening with this last group, it is difficult to maintain that kind of institutional memory. But then what's really interesting to your point is that, like, in what was it, around the Mizzou football protests and shit, like around 2014, 2015, when all these Black student organizations were coming out with student protests again, like literally they were looking at the demands that these student organizations had, and they were almost verbatim the same sets of demands that the students had in the 60s, right? And so, but the fact that they're there means there is some mechanism for institutional memory in the archives, but there's not enough thought about how to keep that alive, as opposed to just something that is, in the archive, right? Or maybe there is, and there's conscious effort to organize against that.
Right, and faculty are not always reliable as holders of institutional memory.
Absolutely not.
Because they be backward. We, as a group, it's like very few faculty that actually engage with students, or there's just they just always see themselves as like distinct from students, unless students approach faculty directly. Oh, nope. Okay. So new subversive questions tended to crop up. Why couldn't work be organized in such a way as to allow the free display of creative faculties? Why shouldn't productive work and learning go hand in hand? Was not prolonged schooling a form of forced unproductive labor aiming to make unemployment less conspicuous? Since production no longer had any use for a significant proportion of the available labor force, why not spread the socially necessary work over the whole population, thereby reducing the working week to 20 or 30 hours? Would it not be possible then to grant all students the right to work, and conversely to grant all workers the right to study for as long and as often as they wish? Would not such a system free students and workers from their respective cultural ghettos, providing both the educational system and the production technology, provided both the educational system and production technology were radically reshaped? By establishing a permanent link between education or schools and work, that is all kinds of work, could not work be made enjoyable and enriching and learning rewarding and productive? Would it not be possible then continually to enrich all jobs, so that all workers, or rather groups and teams of workers, might perform tasks that become increasingly complex and diversified as their knowledge and experience widen?
Definitely a socialist.
Right.
The idea that work could be enjoyable, that we could work less hours.
Right.
These kinds of questions were at first brought up by students only and were regarded as a form of intellectual subversion. But as rebellion spread from the universities to high schools, technical and professional schools, and further to factories, where young workers could no longer stand for idiotic discipline, hierarchization, and repetitiveness of work, students reached for the conclusion that the universities were not a fit ground for putting their subversive insights into practice. Though the universities are essential to the system to reproduce its social relations, i.e. an elite capable of perpetuating them, they are not essential at any given moment to the process of material production. Their going on strike, while it may shock the population at large into becoming aware of the extent and depth of the crisis, does not paralyze the system or jeopardize its daily functioning. Because the students are not yet integrated into the social process of production and have no actual position in it, they have no power over it. Therefore, politically speaking, there is no such thing as student power. The power of the imperialist state can be attacked and weakened ideologically, but not materially by student insurrections. The same goes for the social division of labor. It can be effectively attacked and jeopardized only by those who are submitted to it in the centers of material production. Thus, the task revolutionary student groups felt confronted with was to help carry ideological subversion into the factories and offices, where their spiritual weapons would combine with and contribute to forging the material weapons of revolution. Their own struggle could continue and expand only if it reached beyond the universities.
Now, this reminds me of Boots Riley's critique of basically the kind of Black power, new left moment, that one of the fallacies of that moment was that it moved to the campuses from communities. And I think because he is a labor organizer, or was a labor organizer, that is his critique, which is, because students don't have any control over the means of production precisely for the reasons that the author laid out, which is interesting, right? And I wonder how, as like the economy becomes more based on sort of service and knowledge work, how much that will continue to be the case, especially in terms of like, well, I don't know if this is exactly related, but I'm thinking about like intellectual property. So for example, if you like discover something on a campus of a university, it is not your intellectual property, it belongs to the university. And so, yeah, I wonder to the extent that that's true. And also thinking about student workers, not students who work on campus, but like at a place like Wayne State, for example, students that actually, if you're becoming radicalized on the university campus, like, are you actually taking that back to like your day job because you actually are working for a living?
And I think that is a difference too, because like so many students are no longer only full-time students. They are actually working. Like, my dad, when he was in college, was actually in college on a Pell Grant. Pell Grants do not actually pay for school anymore. Like, I mean, you can get them, but they don't cover expenses. But then at the same time, when he was actually doing the bulk of his organizing, he went from a student to being a worker on campus as the head of the maintenance coalitions, right? And so like, but I think what is the most important thing for me to take up out of this, and this is something that we've talked about in relationship to the Palestinian student protests and all of the student protests, is that they have to go off campus. Like as much work as much work is done on college campuses, and it's important. And I think that's something that's that he's pointing out here, is that there is ideological work to be done by students. But I also don't necessarily think that means students are, and he says they're not a vanguard, like not necessarily a vanguard in and of themselves, but that to take those ideas of being able to push back on those college campuses into these workplaces are very important. But there's a delicate way to also do that too, right? That's not just I'm in school and I'm studying this, so I know, but that also I think students are in a different just position generally, although we are seeing, students being, their futures being jeopardized in new ways. Well, I shouldn't say new ways, but in ways too that makes this kind of not always true too. But students are in a position more often than not where they can afford to make some of those types of demands on the school, demands on the state, and it not necessarily impact the rest of their lives in the ways that workers have to deal with in the same types of ways.
I mean, I feel like on the other hand, there were a lot of people in the 60s that dropped out of school to be in the movement and then became professors with no degree. That would not happen now. That would not happen now because of professionalization and because of some of these dynamics. So it's very interesting, right? And it just raises the question for me, like, if the college and university is like a battleground for struggle, like, to what end? Right. And is it to sort of open up education in the ways that in some ways were described here? Because it can't be a battleground for its own sake, right? So, but I do, like I said, in many places, like everything is up for grabs. And the right understands this. And so I don't think we concede it, but it's like, when we say that the, college and university are battlegrounds, it's like, to what end, like what outcomes and objectives, like, are we trying to achieve? So
I think that was pretty much it. That might have been like one more paragraph to that. Okay, yeah, that's the last paragraph. All revolutionary student groups in the advanced capitalist world have sooner or later come to this conclusion. To put it into practice, which is no easy matter, they have had to stop considering themselves specifically student organizations and movements. They have had to become groups of political agitators and militants whose vision encompasses the whole of society. Their work within the universities has had to become only one aspect of their militancy. Students' problems have had to be approached from and situated within an overall view of the crisis of capitalist society and the capitalist division of labor. Indeed, the function of the school and of the educational system generally in reproducing this division of labor can be questioned effectively only if students gain concrete insight into how the capitalist system uses the educational system in building and perpetuating the hierarchical structure of the labor force. And if conversely, the labor force is led to understand on the ground on the ground of its own concrete experience, that its own struggle against hierarchical barriers and submission in work can ultimately succeed only if the present educational system is torn down and replaced by something completely different. Yeah, because it ain't doing shit right now.
Right. So this is like we were saying, we had this reading paired with that conversation with Austin et al. But because there's this discourse, for example, about like the student intifada. We have to be serious about like, it's one thing if those who are sort of suffering in Gaza have that understanding of students and see that as part of solidarity with their experience. But I think analytically, we have to be clear and serious about what's possible and what's happening, right? And so, you know, if it is that the position of students is to wage the, you know, ideological and spiritual battle, okay, but we have to be clear that that's not the vanguard, right? That's not even necessarily the source of self-emancipation. So I think this is an ongoing question to see how students regroup and reconstitute since most encampments have been shut down or have been voluntarily dismantled. And I imagine students will come back in the fall. What that will look like, I think it's important to engage and analyze students as a group, right? As a class, and be clear-headed about what's happening.
You said Reagan, as governor of California, raised tuition because of the student strikes, said they wouldn't have time for protests if they had to worry about paying for school. That should spread across the nation. I think that, and two of the primary things that created the so-called Black middle class were the GI Bill and you know, Pell Grants, or you know, assistance from the state and to go to college. And so knowing that created this group of people, and that it also coincides with this moment where we see these mass uprisings, these mass student protests, I think there's a very intentional way that the government has regrouped and organized, learning from what we have done as students. I think even one of the stories my dad always tells is that even the notion on campuses now that college campuses aren't like these public spaces for people to come up and take, right? So like they used to just be able to go on Howard's campus and take a room to, you know, have a meeting. But now you have to have insurance and security, all of these things. And, you know, you have to present ID to even physically be on campus. And arguably there might be some good reasons for those things, but more likely than not, they are ways to maintain the barrier between the university community and the community
down in town.
Yes.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that the other thing too is, so it's not actually tuition that has gone up. It has gone up, but it's fees. So in-state tuition will be like $5,000, but then you have $13,000 of fees, like including room and board, for example. And then students are forced to live on campus for 2 or 3 years. And this has to do with the land question, and how so many colleges have like leased out dorms, right? So the building of new dorms and building of new buildings, there's a way that they're building back, they're displacing those costs onto students through like these random fucking fees, right? So you have like a $500 gym fee and all these fees that are built in that exacerbate the unaffordability of college. And then on top of all of that, the composition of the faculty matters. Because you get into college, right? What are you learning? Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? What is how are you seeing education as both a responsibility, not just a privilege? And I think that that's really important as well. And
the vast majority of college professors come from a very small, select group of universities that are training them. So there's also that, you know, that cultural impetus to maintain, you know, bourgeois proclivity.
So there's that. And most students are taught by adjuncts. They're not taught by tenured or tenure track faculty. Most classes are taught by adjuncts who are notoriously overworked, who are teaching multiple classes.
Don't have health insurance.
Right? Don't have health insurance.
Don't have an office.
Don't have an office. All of these things. And so it's like, you're paying all this money for what? Right? And so there's some professors that are balling out, but it's not going to salaries. Not our salaries.
It's going to president's salaries.
It's going
though.
right. It's going to administrative salaries. It is not going to our salaries
and
like,
coaches.
Right. Listen. So it's I think that all of these things go into like deciding like how is it that colleges and universities are battlegrounds, and and if they just are these bastions of privilege and accumulation, then they're part of the structure that needs to be overthrown. And I say that as somebody who makes my living from a college or university. So
absolutely.
What else? Okay, so reading challenge update. How is that going? So, okay, y'all. So I did finish Black Liberation and Palestine Solidarity by Lenny Brenner and Matthew Quest. I didn't end up starting a new book, but I did listen to The Groundings with My Brothers by Walter Rodney on Audible, a short little ditty that I do love. And I just wanted to revisit because it makes me very happy. As I'm in my Settle Your Quarrels era and thinking about like Rodney and his ethics and the way that he sort of engaged in polemic, for example, related to all different groups of people, whatever. So it was important for me to revisit Groundings with My Brothers in that moment. And so this week I will be reading Internationalism, Decolonizing Native America and Palestine by Stephen Salida. And so it's in my Kindle, y'all. Like I'm choosing Kindle books because like I am. They're all the size. There's no Kindle. No, you can use your iPad, but with the Kindle app. But yeah, so and I'm also, the other book that I am reading but won't finish is J. Lauren Matori's Stigma and Culture, Last Place Anxiety in Black America, because I'm interested in Randy.
He was on my committee.
Randy. I'm interested in the concept of Schadenfreude, which he talks about. So this is my little Kindle, y'all. These are my books. Yeah.
Okay, well, somehow CBS and I both pivoted to Walter Rodney. So I also started reading The Groundings with My Brothers. This is a newer, like an updated release copy, which this then took me to. So Keisha Khan Perry has a Groundings with My Sisters piece that I think that was like 2014 or something like that when it came out, which is thinking about for her, it was the importance of internationalism for Black women's organizing in the Americas and how that work is so dependent on doing that kind of organizing work across borders. I did keep reading the Born Palestinian, Born Black, but y'all, what I realized about myself is that I just don't like reading poetry. I love poetry, but I don't like reading poetry. I like to hear people talk about it. And I also reread, but I listened to this, Fledgling by Octavia Butler, because it is the upcoming reading for our Black feminist book club reading for Northeastern. Fledgling is, I don't know if y'all are Octavia Butler fans out there. Fledgling is one of my top favorites, but it is a weird fucking ass book. And it's a weird book. It's a weird book because the main character is like hundreds of year old vampire who is in a child's body. And so there are scenes in the book that feel like, what do you call it? Not incest. What's the right word?
Pedophilia.
Yeah, that feel like pedophilia, which I think she did that intentionally to explore, but I do recommend that one if folks like that. So that's where I am on the book challenge. What am I going to read next? Oh, I haven't finished Groundings with My Brothers. So I'm going to finish that, and I'm still finishing this one too, the one on Nkrumah. With the women.
Yeah. Okay. So I had it. I don't know what is it Rhoda SB or Rhoda's B. So I don't know what article that is, but I imagine Walter Rodney would have hesitancy around citation because when it's used as a demonstration of mastery, right? And so that's one way, right? But a lot of, especially kind of like, I would say Black feminists and Black radical scholars have a different citational practice. That is about staging conversations and about it can also be a practice of not resuscitation but of like resurrection, if you will. Like, so you cite people who are not often cited, like, you cite people who are long forgotten, but then I think it's also there always will be a process of like showing that you've read,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's secondary or primary sources. But I also think that it's can be like a labor of love. But I think that to Rodney's point is, you know, especially like with colonial education and education that doesn't have those ethics, like citation and practice can be a lot of dead white men, and it can be a means by which people discredit your work if you're not citing the right people, citing enough people, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah. Started Settlers. I bet that work was on my bedside table for a long time. I need to read that.
Okay.
What else?
Revolution.
So I know we've been reading a lot, but there was this infographic, I think that's what it's called, on Instagram about escalation. That I thought it would be interesting to get y'all's perspective on, and just for us to read through, because it's about it's that one. It's about sort of when people are calling for escalation, like what do they actually mean? And are we being serious about what that entails and what our actual power is as people in the belly of the beast who are massively disorganized? So it says, in the past 72 hours, the online space has been flooded with renewed calls to escalate, just as we've heard over the course of the past 8 months, as new horrors within the horror of accelerated genocide occur. But let's really break this down, because while we all feel the emotion driving these calls, it's gotten to a point where online rhetoric feels frenzied and reactive. Which wouldn't matter, except it steers offline rhetoric and movement as well.
The basis for the calls to escalate is a desire to make the slaughter stop. This is the same call to shut it down we've heard since the beginning. If we don't get it, shut it down. Except we haven't shut it down because we don't currently have the power or numbers to shut anything down. There has been a lot of escalation within the realm of nonviolent civil disobedience. It has not unsurprisingly worked to stop or slow the genocide in any meaningful way.
People seem unwilling to accept this point. The movement for Palestine in the U.S. is ultimately a relatively small movement. Even the student encampments, while inspirational in their own right, are at a relatively limited number of universities nationally and are made up of a small percentage of the student body. The encampments, just like freeway shutdowns and even attempts to stop shipments, have provided optics and inspiration to a degree, but materially speaking, have proven powerless.
Why is the movement for Palestine unable to stop the genocide? Because the entire U.S. military, police, and financial power stands on the side of Israel. So in order to stop the genocide, you would have to either be able to morally sway those sectors or be able to seriously challenge all that power. There is currently no cohesive movement in this country that has anywhere near the power necessary to do that.
Escalate, escalate, escalate. What does that really mean?
Read it once.
The censorship online is so heavy, but let's be real. Or let's try to be real. It feels like some folks are calling for armed uprising as escalation. I would never speak out against that, even if I'm not currently there within our context. But if you are calling other people to that, then you better be on that tip too. And if you are actually on that tip, then online doesn't really seem like the place for that, unless you just want other people to take that up for you.
If, on the other hand, people are referring to escalating civil disobedience, my question is this: escalate to what point? What level of nonviolent civil disobedience do you think is going to stop this genocide? Be real. The Weathermen Underground were literally exploding buildings in protests in the 70s alongside mass student protests, and they couldn't stop the war machine. The war machine is even stronger now.
In Malcolm's final speech, he said, quote, "The only thing power respects is power," end quote. Malcolm advocated building power in self-defense. We have to build power. Gaza doesn't have time for us to build power. Gaza needs us now. No, Gaza needs a powerful movement right now, and we don't have it because we haven't been building mass popular power. We have been playing fucking Instagram games. We've been organizing marches, rallies, and actions that look good on the gram and make us feel better, like we're doing something, but our movement remains weak.
So if you want to feel guilt about Gaza, feel guilt that we haven't prioritized building power amongst the poor and oppressed in our own country. A real movement for their lives, which in turn would challenge the very same power structure that is slaughtering Gaza. It is our fault, at least partially, that Gaza is being destroyed, just not in the way that most people think it's our fault.
I'm tired of saying the same shit over and over. I really am. I catch hell for it in comments, DMs, and offline. But you know what? Whatever. As annoyed and angry as people get at me, I'm just as angry that we don't have more to offer Gaza because we spent decades wasting all our energy on escalating nonviolent direct action and civil disobedience against the most violent and amoral power structure the world has ever known, instead of building real militant grassroots power from the bottom, which could actually change the future. So, what do y'all think about this? So this is sort of, I think this is sort of along the lines of the commentary I was offering a few weeks ago about the encampments, about the objectives, right? And how ultimately the objectives should be joining organizations, right? Building a mass base. And that doesn't seem to be part of the stated objectives. Now, whether or not students have that consciousness is another question, but it certainly is. I find that to be very interesting. Yes, this is all on Instagram. That's the link. So it was posted by Black Leftist is the person's name, but the slides are from it's Bad School. Is their Instagram name.
Okay,
yeah.
But so this is my question about this. So then how do we reconcile that with Ajamu Umi's warning or admonition not to critique in that way? I'm just curious. Like what how does that serve that purpose of calling out something, but then what is it doing in its place?
So I think that I don't know that it's denigrating nonviolent direct action as such. I think it's like, what do you mean by escalate? And to me, the takeaway is the only escalation that matters is building mass power now. And so to me, because it has a solution, I think it's a worthwhile read. At the same time that I do think we have to tread carefully when we have those types of critiques, because to Ajamu's point and to a point that I think that you've made, all types of consciousness is raised, right, through different sorts of acts. And so I think so it's a good question. I think it's an important critique. It in the spirit of the he didn't say celebration, but what was it? Praise and self-criticism.
Well, because so this is my thing, right? Because on the one hand, he's the poster is telling us to do something, right? Which is to think about what escalation means and to build power, but it's still not a plan, right? And so on the yes, we've been saying we need to build power for 70 years. That's what Black power is. Now people have different ideas about what Black power is, but the person who coined that term had a very particular understanding of what Black power meant. And it was about consolidating resources, building actual power, not all this representative bullshit. And so, and again, this is not even me attacking this post, because I actually think that it's important, but really to think about, okay, that is a valid, assessment, critique, but it also still is not a plan either.
Yeah. So to me, I think that's part of what, when I have this critique and when I was assessing specifically our time at Harvard, it's sort of like the objective should be getting people to join organizations. And I think, I want to say we both mentioned that the organizations that we're in, right? And anytime people ask me, because ultimately people come up afterwards, after my talks or after the different things that we do, and ask like, what organization should they join? So for example, when I did a talk at No Names thing, there was a tech dude and a nurse that were asking for like anti-imperialist organizations they could join. I said, I don't know. But I told dude, I'll put him in contact with Austin, who's at MIT. And I told the other girl, like I'm friends with Claire, who's a doctor, and she's part of that, but also I think part of a sort of radical network of Black medical workers. And so like, I don't know all the organizations, but I do think like if that literally is our solution, then we have to be steering people in that way. For sure. But to me, I just think the critique is so important because of how it's been overblown, or because it's the student intifada thing that I'm like, and then I remember when we're having that conversation, somebody or some other conversation, I think it was the week before, about encampments, and somebody's like, students are the vanguard. And I'm like, no, they're not. Right. Even the thing that we read today, it's like, no, students are not the vanguard. And so it is, but I think it's great to keep in mind again, like what criticism to what, like,
No, I mean,
just
I
talking
actually
shit or
don't
what?
have a problem with that
Yeah.
post at all. But I'm just thinking about it in terms of all the things that we've read today and thinking
Mhm.
together with, what is it? What is when? So then the bigger question: when we make these kinds of public critiques, because then the question is too, like, where is that post pushing people to? Where are you pointing people to go?
Mhm.
And I don't know, and I can't say that they're not doing that at all because I don't, follow
Right.
that page enough. But even in that limited scope of that post, it is a critique without a push
Mhm.
necessarily.
Well, I think that their push was saying that building mass power, right? And that is the solution. So are you saying like they should have had a list of organizations that
Perhaps,
build
yeah.
mass power? Yeah. And there was something that was said in there that I don't know if this is true. When it said online drives what happens in person. I don't always know that to be true, right? I don't know. Because it seems to me that there's an awful big disconnect between the debates, discourses, and positions that happen online, specifically on Twitter, and what people are actually saying in the real world.
There is, for sure.
So I don't know how they actually inflect. Though I will say I reference a lot of things that happen online because I'm on Twitter and there's just a lot of stuff. And so what the actual interrelationship is, I'm not sure if one drives the other.
Yeah. Lou, stop texting and driving, man. We don't need.
I know, Lou. Hopefully, you had to stop.
Audience members dying and stuff.
Right.
Don't be texting and driving. Not safe. Okay, but that's something to think about, and for us to continue those. So I don't know. So I see Jamila has listed BAP and AAPRP, but what organizations do folks belong to? Drop your organizations in the chat. And where you are, right? So either a city or a state, and where your organization is, as a way maybe of connecting. Because I don't know how many of you all, even in the chat, know one another, and if you all are in places where you could actually be working together physically.
So Lou said, I thought they were saying that instead of building black powder, I know you meant power, I was just that a lot of the energy and resources were used on nonviolent direct action and representation type ish. Nonviolent direct action could be a form of building power if power is building a mass base, and if you're clear that is what the objective is, just like the encampments. If the objective is to raise consciousness and then funnel those people into organizations to continue that work, it could be a way of building power. But it's slow work. It's slow work, but
all of it's slow work.
Yeah, all of it's slow work. And I think that in this age, people don't have a 5-year plan or 10-year plan for organizing, right? So yeah. But I think that's right. And again, it's just about being clear. I don't think there's anything wrong with engaging in any of the things that we do. Like John Will said, if you're spinning that fucking sign on the corner that says organize, it matters. But I think being clear is what, and I think sometimes we are not honest about how effective we are or are not,
No, listen, anybody who is doing door knocking, talking to random people on the streets, hats off to you, because that is not easy work, because most people don't want to be bothered. And and a lot of times the ones who do want to be bothered ain't do it, and like they're not going to go anywhere with it. They'll just sit there and take your time. So hats off to anybody who's doing that type of work, because that is exhausting.
It really is. And I think everybody should try at everything. But I'm not of the perspective that everybody should do everything.
No.
You know what I mean? And there are some people, like as Jamila's saying, get in the field, yes. But the field has to be broad. What getting in the field actually means has to be broad. I could drive you there. You know what I mean? Like I am not the best person to talk to people. I don't think. Maybe I am. I don't know. And so I think, and it's not even just because I don't want, people to slam the door in my face. It's just like some people just aren't good at things. And I also do believe that we should maximize people's skills within these organizations. And sometimes we don't take the best advantage of what people have to offer, right? Even though everybody should have to do everything.
And see,
just to try it.
And I don't mind talking to people. What I don't like is the cold thing, like just like when they're like, you know, at an event where there's already a sense that people are coming here for something. Cool. But like just standing on the street corner when people are going between work or whatever. I've done that, and whew,
you know who's good at that? Tongo. He is fearless. He is, I will say I think part of my trepidation about that is being a woman. I'm not gonna lie. And years of street harassment. But it's also because I'm not extroverted in that way. But he is like, he will hand out flyers, knock on doors. He is somebody that would fill in every part of the position, right? But I do think that everybody should have to hand out flyers to
taskmaster more than a schmoozer.
I'm not even a taskmaster. I don't know what I listen.
Definitely not a schmoozer. Though.
If I could live my life, I would be like Karl Marx in the fucking dusty ass library, covered in boils and shit, just doing research. Like that would be how I would spend my time.
And see, y'all know what I prefer doing is all of the things that make a thing go. Like I like the little behind the scenes stuff. Like I don't really want to be on the stage. I don't really want to be necessarily like the voice of anything. But like, oh, something's off, and you need somebody behind to go. I don't know. I'm good in a crunch. Like I'm good under pressure. Like I don't know why. But
it says Layla seems like a meter and a greeter. I would say to a certain degree. Like again, at an event, I can see you like. This is where you need to sit.
Yeah,
like we need more chairs, but definitely. I'm actually pretty good at planning broad.
You do, and you're an ideas person. Like I don't think I'm a big ideas person.
Man. I am an ideas man. That is very true. I am. But
even for the podcast, like I think that's how we operate. Like you have these ideas about where you want the show to go, and for me, I'm like, okay.
Like you like figured out how to use StreamYard. I did. Like all of the logistical things that we need.
And I'm like logistics. I like logistics. It's actually cool for me. I don't have no problem.
Yeah. And the whole speaking thing is interesting because I don't love it. Like I don't love it because I don't like the I don't love it, but I will do it. Like when people ask me to do it, I will do it because I also understand how both of us are received, right? And then so if I'm asked to do it, I'll do it. But I'm never like, I'll give the speech, whatever. Like it's just
also because like I can give a speech, but when I think about a good speaker, like I don't think I'm a bad speaker, but I don't think I'm a good speaker in the way that like some people who are speakers, like they move you, like they draw you in, like, and they do that without reading a piece of paper or whatever. Like I've seen, we know those. That's who Malcolm was. That's who Kwame was. Like
people who grew up in the church are exceptionally good speakers. Are exceptionally good and exceptionally moving. I think speakers, and I think that's really important. But again, everybody should have to do everything. So if you hate public speaking, you should have to public speak at least once. Because again, like we can't hoard skills. What does it say? Dr. CBS, an ideas creative leader of a think tank, not as much an administrator. Thinking and researching, I think, is good. Singers are good, or people who can lead the chant. Now listen, I was a cheerleader. I could lead a chant.
You will lead a chant.
I am loud. I love chants. I love brick by brick, wall by wall, we're gonna free Mumia Abu Jamal.
And see, I was in the choir.
That was corny. I would do it better, y'all. But like, no, I do.
And I was in the choir, so I like to fill in. That's what I prefer to do.
Yeah.
But anywho.
So anyway, other things that we've had our eyes on. Do we want to do so South Africa had their elections for the first time since the end of apartheid. The ANC does not have a majority and they will be forced to no, that wasn't off the top of the dome. No, that wasn't off the top of the dome. But the ANC will be forced to form a coalition government. Now, of course, the powers that be, international capital, wants them to form a coalition. What was it? The Democratic Alliance, which is a right of center party. But there's a possibility that they can go more radical with MK and EFF. But that's just something to keep our eyes on. I'm by no means an expert on South African politics, but it's not as if the ANC was,
people been complaining about the ANC for a long time. But you said the EFF got 10% of the vote?
Yeah, they got 10%, which again, if anybody is an expert on South Africa, that sounds big,
significant,
but it was the least amount of all of the parties, to be fair. But they're relatively new.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's not a good showing. So, because we don't have
more into that.
Yeah, we don't have that type of government here. Here it's like if you're not the loser and loser light, then you're the ultimate loser. So anyway.
So another thing just to keep our eyes on is that in the history of Mexico now, they have their first woman president who is a left candidate. I believe Morena is the party that she belongs to. Claudia Sheinbaum is her name. Not a whole lot to say about that at the moment, but just that I think that that's something to keep watching to see what happens with Mexico. So.
And not to, we don't do the identity reductionism here, so we can't assume that just because she's a woman she will be great. But it might, General AMLO was a leftist and still invaded Haiti, so that's to me measuring stick. Like, what is going to be your position on Haiti and Haitian sovereignty, among other things. So,
Malema is the most dangerous man in Africa. Julius.
Yeah, Julius Malema underperformed. Okay. Oh, okay. She was a gentrifier. Okay.
Well, that's entirely possible.
Right. She's part of the quote unquote left party, which is the Morena party. But think the Democrats are the left party here. So, what does that actually mean? Left of what?
Yes.
Left of the right. Okay. So there's a couple
left of the right.
So the other thing we wanted to lift up is there are displaced Sudanese who are in Ethiopia currently on a hunger strike. I think this is the third or so time they've been displaced. The UN is doing very little to acknowledge the plight of Sudan in general, but this particular group of displaced persons in particular. And so, there's a couple of videos that we wanted to play for you. And interestingly, I have gotten most of the information about Sudan from TikTok and Instagram. Like, the mainstream media is not really covering any of this very well. And so shout out to the creatives. Shout out to the culture workers who are doing this work, because this is how we actually.
I want to make sure the sound is.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yes. There. Okay.
Yeah. This is how we actually know what's going on. So here's the first one.
Oh, sheesh.
That's all.
All right.
As the refugee, we never got security, safety, and human rights. We have been kidnapped, we have been killed, we have been looted.
We are suffer a lot, and there is no secure. The place is not safety. To live here, it is better for us to return back to our country.
We give the local authorities and the UNHCR 14 days to sort out our problem, but they did not respond. That is why we left the camp. We are now starting the hunger strike, protesting, and we are also existing and striking to our demand.
We have no supplies, food supplies. We have no water. We are living in the forestry, no protection, no security, no shelter. We are calling for the human rights organizations and international communities to intervene in our situation that we are living. So we have calling for the human rights and evacuation exactly from this country to another country. Country has security and gives the human rights. So we never got human rights here in this country.
They are not treat us as a refugee. They are not treat us well. Where is the humanity? Where is all the people in order to assist us? We want to go to safety place to secure the future of our kids.
We have a long time, no house, no education, no good environmental, no honesty. We are human. Please, if we are watching us like a human, we must help us.
So that is one of the, so who told them to go to Ethiopia? I think that people are just fleeing to surrounding countries. And there was I guess a refugee camp, Olala, in Ethiopia, but it's grossly underfunded. All of these abuses were happening, and so they left. And then there's one more shorter video that is talking about the same situation, about the hunger strike. And also about how
survival.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, the UN is evading, doing tactics to evade responsibility. So here.
Yeah. Oh, come on.
Quick update on the situation of the Sudanese refugees in northern Ethiopia, the Amhara region. Today is the 30th of May, and they're still continuing their open hunger strike until yesterday, May 29th. Badge of food and water and other materials that are very critical for their survival was planned to reach them, but unfortunately that wasn't successful. So they had to continue the hunger strike on these dire circumstances. Up until yesterday, there were no direct contact by the UNHCR or any other authority or any attempt to help the situation or supply them with what they need. I want you all to continue emailing the UNHCR. You'll find the template in my BI. And you know the rest. UNHCR have changed their domain from .org to .com. The first day, the emails were successfully sent. However, since last night, they have changed their domain. I expect they will keep changing it. Now the template is updated with the new domain. And I don't want y'all to be discouraged by this. For the UNHCR, we want you to change your attitude and behavior towards the refugees, not your domain. I think the whole point is to at. Hello, I'm here to give you a
Did it cut off?
Yeah, no, that was it.
Okay.
So instead of changing their approach, they are changing their domain because they're being flooded with emails. So keep your eyes on, I'm not doing the all eyes discourse, but keep attention to what's happening in Sudan, what's happening in Congo, what's happening in Haiti, even as we are giving our revolutionary focus and efforts to what's happening in Palestine. So I'll say Kali Akuno did a very, very, very good interview with a man named Ishmael Kushkush. It was called "A Revolution Betrayed." I forgot to put the link, but yeah, but if you Google that, it's not in the docs.
That's not that one.
No.
Oh, okay.
If you Google Kali Akuno and then Ismail Kushkush or Kali Akuno, "A Revolution Betrayed," you'll be able to find it. Let's see. Maybe. No. Let's see. Yeah, that's it.
This is the stuff.
Oh, that's just. Oh yeah. Okay. So maybe if you click that link, because it was a Zoom thing. I don't know
But that's
if that's the replay.
Okay. Wait. Whoa.
No. Okay. Never mind. Okay. Anyway.
If we find it, we'll share it on our page.
Yeah, sorry about that, y'all. You want to talk about the last one? The last one is fuck shit.
It's just stupid. So apparently, some of the survivors of the October 7th retaliation have decided that they now want to sue Palestinian support groups, including students, universities, whatever, in the U.S. What did they say for creating an atmosphere
like pain and suffering?
Yeah,
increased stress, and apparently using legislation is like a key tool of, or not legislation, excuse me, using like litigious means, using the law, using lawsuits is a key way that the Zionists intimidate and try to shut down anything like BDS, student protests, etc., that are against Zionism. So yes, that it is very wild. And so of course there are groups that are
suing in what courts though? That's
Virginia.
Yeah,
okay. It was a Virginia court. So students are concerned, right? Or people are concerned that this is going to have an effect on free speech if it is successful. And it's another intimidation tactic, and it just goes to show they got time, they got resources, they got power to do these types of things. And so what else do we want to say?
9 survivors.
Yeah, so 9 of the survivors, and they're doing it through some type of NGO.
National Justice Person. They're saying it's Hamas. They're saying that it's a Hamas propaganda division. That's crazy.
So organizations like Students for Justice in Palestine are the Hamas propaganda division. When we know that Hillel and other organizations are literally Zionist propaganda.
Seriously, and that's what they're designed to do, is have an Israeli base on college campuses.
So there is. There was another section where they talked about this string of lawsuits. Advocates also see this month's lawsuit as part of a broader trend of using the legal system to stifle media and advocacy perceived as critical of Israel. The case is the latest in a series of lawsuits brought by pro-Israel groups in recent months. In March, survivors of October 7th sued an American nonprofit that supports the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, alleging complicity in the deadly attack. Israel, however, has failed to provide evidence that UNRWA was involved, and an independent investigation cast further doubt on these allegations. Then in April, relatives of October 7th victims petitioned the court system in Canada to block the country's government from restoring funding to UNRWA, which provides critical aid to Gaza. Another federal lawsuit filed earlier this year took aim at journalism organizations, the Associated Press. It claimed the Associated Press hired members of Hamas as freelancers in its news gathering activities. The same organization that sued the Associated Press is also involved in May's case against AMP and National Student Justice for Palestine, the Jewish National Advocacy Center, or JNAC. The Associated Press has called the complaint against it baseless. The Jewish National Advocacy Center has claimed that the organizations named as defendants in this lawsuit have ties to Hamas.
Everybody has ties to Hamas.
Yeah, everything is Hamas. Everybody is Hamas. And it's bullying, it's terrorism, really, right? It's legal terrorism to try to stifle voices, to shut people up. And again, it goes back to this point about if we are better organized, if we have a mass base, then these types of things will not only be ineffective, but they will be inconceivable. And so this is why it is important to organize, and to use your education that you're getting in these colonized universities for movement, right? Yes. For the world that we want, that we are envisioning to come, and not to reproduce, not for class reproduction.
All right, y'all.
So that's all, y'all.
That is, and we still with 2 hours.
2 hours. We cannot get out of it. We are sorry, y'all. We keeping you here, holding you captive on a Monday.
And to think we were even thinking about pushing this back.
Right.
All right, y'all. Well, thanks as always for hanging with us, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.